Yo, what's happening, everyone? Welcome in to a brand new edition of Snaps. It is Monday, 12/12/2022. How about that? A lot of twos in today's date, but we'll be discussing who was number one as a Heisman was handed out over the weekend. Now, I still don't exactly know the difference between the Maxwell and the Heisman and because they're both given the best college football player. It doesn't matter. Caleb Williams won the Heisman. We're going to talk Caleb Williams today. We're also going to talk a little prime time as Deion Sanders has already started making news up in Colorado. And Bill Connolly, providing manna from the sports talk heavens, has decided to turn his prodigious wit and numbers and analytics on ranking all of the 36 teams that have made the playoffs in the CFP era. And it's a top five that is sure to make you a bit angry, almost no matter who you are. I mean, that's what lists do. And it's great work by Connolly. And I am angry. And so we'll break it down. Welcome. If this is your first time listening to Snaps, you're in the Volume Sports YouTube channel. I'm your host, T-Bob Hebert, one of your hosts. Your other host is the beautiful, half Jewish, half Catholic, QB1, Mr. Aaron Murray. Aaron, how's Hanukkah?
This is my prime time of the year, T-Bob. I do not believe Hanukkah has started just yet. I think it's a little bit later this year, but this is when the gifts really start flowing. Don't worry. We will. I'll ship you some latkes and a handmade dreidel and some chocolate to have some fun with. We'll play a little dreidel game maybe on Snaps. Have some fun. Dreidel. I made it out of clay, and when it's dry and ready, oh dreidel, I shall play. There we go. No, your boy's getting ready.
Was that you? Wait, was that you just trying to prove your Jewish bona fides? Because for those that don't know, a few weeks ago, Aaron literally did not know the date of Hanukkah. Now, I don't know the dates either, but I don't know if I have to, right?
It changes. You act like it's Christmas. We're like, oh, it's December 25th. Like,
Aaron still does not know the date of Hanukkah because
I just said. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, because he just said, I think it's in a week, and I do not think it has started, so.
I know it has not started. The last I remember, it does start somewhere closer to Christmas time. And I have a baby here, so I have the ultimate excuse right now of baby brain and forgetting, fatigue, all that. So get off my back, bro. I'm just a little sleep deprived over here. Hanukkah's starting soon, though, I believe. And you know what else I have to get ready for, T-Bob? You know what I say?
What's that?
I have to go this weekend. I have the FCS Championship semifinals. Incarnate Word which I don't know how many times I'll be able to say that without slurring my words.
I think it's incarnate. I think it's incarnate word. I don't think it's 8. I think it's incarnate word. I'm not Catholic. I live around a lot of Catholics. I feel like it's incarnate word. I don't know.
Incarnate word versus North Dakota State. High of 18, low of 10 game day. But we're in the dome. We're in the Fargo Dome, so we'll be fine.
10? A low of 10? It's 80 degrees
2 days
out here. A low of 10?
2 days after I leave, it gets into the negative. So luckily it's on Friday, not like Sunday, because it's like -2, I believe, starting Sunday, Monday of next week up there. So, yeah.
Wait, yes, I meant to mention this.
It's going to be fun.
So if you are watching or if you're calling Incarnate Word, you will be calling a former LSU quarterback, Lindsey Scott.
Ooh.
Lindsey Scott Jr. Have you seen his numbers this year? This
went
viral a bit over the weekend.
Is he related to Lindsey Scott from Georgia?
I have no idea. But Lindsey Scott used to be at LSU. He could have beat out Danny Etling. He's somehow still in college, which I don't fully understand. He's like Stetson in that way. Lindsey Scott this year completed 71.5% of his passes for 4,300 yards, 59 touchdowns to 6 picks for Lindsey Scott. Hitting Joe Burrow numbers. Joe Burrow threw 60 in a season. Lindsey Scott's going to throw more than that after this week. And all right, let's go Incarnate Word. Big Incarnate Word guy right here. I had him from the beginning. I told you to play him on Best Bets. You should have listened to me. None of y'all are actually going to go check to see if I said that. So I can just say that and assume.
Are we going to pick some lines for the FCS semifinals this weekend? Are we going to do that?
When are you going to?
They have that,
Fargo?
I'm going to Fargo. The game's on Friday night. Friday night, baby. 7 o'clock kickoff. Only game in town.
So you will be gone on Thursday.
No, I leave Thursday night. Late night.
Oh, nice. Well, one in, one out. Got it. I was about to give you a lot of shit if you did not tell me you were missing a show.
No. I leave like at 7:30 Thursday night. Get in at midnight so I can do the show, and then we'll fly back first thing Saturday morning.
If there's one thing that we have learned here, it's that Aaron Murray does not shirk work. He literally called a football game 2 days after Thanksgiving, 2 days after the birth of a brand new child. My wife would have had my nuts handed to me on a silver platter, right? Who was it that gave the king one time in the Bible, like somebody's head on a silver platter? He was like Paul's head. I don't know. But the point is, I would have been a dead man. Okay. But Aaron Murray's all about putting in that work each and every day here on Snaps. That's why you should subscribe to the pod. That's why you should share it with your friends. That's why if you're watching on YouTube, you should hit the like button, share that with your friends, and help us grow this wonderful college football community. All right. Do we want to go ahead and dive in, Aaron? Are we done with a little playful foreplay here?
Yeah. Foreplay's over with. We're lubricated. Let's make it happen.
Let's dive right inside of Caleb Williams and Patrick Mahomes, as there's been a comp going around town lately, and it's kind of a larger question about just how good Caleb Williams can be. But a lot of people are calling him Patrick Mahomes. We'll get into why. Aaron can really explain why, even better than I can. But here's a quote that Caleb Williams had to say on kind of being compared to Patrick Mahomes. Says, quote, "It's pretty cool, I'd say, just because everybody watches Patrick and sees all the cool things he can do. I always said, even in high school, and look, obviously he's special, but I don't think there's anything I can't do that he's doing out there. I think it's really cool. Like I said, I've had comparisons to a bunch of other people, and since I have, Patrick is pretty cool." So Caleb basically telling you, yeah, look, it's awesome to be compared to Patrick Mahomes, but I've kind of grown up playing in this same way. I think I can do everything that he's doing. I don't think it's as special necessarily as you think it is. And I'll get into why I think that's important. But first off, Aaron, is it ridiculous or too much to call Caleb Williams the next Pat Mahomes?
I don't think it is either. I know a lot of people go crazy with, I will never compare another player because he's his own player and he's his own person. Yes, he is. We get that. He is his own person. He's a completely different DNA. He is Caleb Williams. He is Patrick Mahomes. Two different people. But there is nothing wrong with watching both their tapes and saying, I wonder. He kind of reminds me of this guy who right now is the best quarterback in the NFL, the things that he does extremely well. And I have no issue was saying someone reminds you of someone else. I think it's obviously for Caleb Williams, it's a huge compliment. You remind a lot of people of, like I said, the best quarterback right now on the planet, and Patrick Mahomes. So it's the evolution of the position. At the end of the day, that is what it is. We've seen from quarterbacks over, especially the past, I would say over the past 10 years, from guys like Patrick Mahomes to Baker, to Kyler Murray, to Lamar Jackson, to look at Jalen Hurts there at Philadelphia. Right now, it looks like he's going to be the MVP of the NFL this season. I thought coming out of college football, I was like, there's no way that guy can even throw a football. Like I would never take a chance on him. He can't complete balls down the field, but he's a hard worker. He has a lot of great intangibles. He's a hell of an athlete. And when you're that type of athlete, that type of runner, you're going to get your one-on-one opportunities on the outside to make plays. So bringing that all back to Caleb Williams, what makes him so similar to Patrick Mahomes? It's the freelance. It's the creativity. It's artwork. It really is. The quarterback position has to have a sense of Picasso on it. The special ones do. You're not a robot. You're not just a 5-step, 3-step, throw the football type guy, which those guys can obviously do. It's when things get ugly and nasty. How do you change the picture, whether it's with your legs or with your arm, to be creative for your football team? And for those who watched yesterday with Patrick Mahomes and his ability to get outside the pocket and do a little dump pass, like, my goodness, how backyard football amazing is that? That is what Caleb Williams does. Changing the arm angles, getting out of pressures, extending plays, putting the pressure on the defense to have to guard receivers for 5, 6, 7 seconds. That is the name of the game nowadays. If you don't have a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes, like Jalen, like Lamar, like Josh Allen there in Buffalo, like Caleb Williams, you're going to struggle, or you're not going to be as good as you can. Those guys are
like Andy Dalton. You left Andy Dalton, Saints starting quarterback, off that list.
I forgot Andy Dalton, 100%. Yep. Yeah.
No, look, your point is very well made, Aaron. And I think when people get upset by comparisons, like by comps, I think the problem with comps only become bad analysis if you say Caleb Williams like Patrick Mahomes, and then you leave it alone and you add no further context. That's bad analysis. Comps, though, have their use, and it is to provide a framework. And there can be no doubt that Patrick Mahomes has created, in a lot of ways, a kind of new style of playing that position. Now, it's not wholly new, and sure, you're going to have all sorts of people like throw me like, Brett Favre gunslinger clips, like Cunningham. And yes, and on a grand scale, Mahomes is grabbing, from different elements and different players and different eras. But it all comes together, and the new whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and it's kind of a new way of playing this quarterback position. I mean, habits like these weird arm angles, like these, like throwing across your body, throwing across your face, no look passes, all of these things that would have made coaches shudder just a little while ago are now being applauded and even encouraged if you can do it. And obviously this entire conversation comes with a baseline if you are skilled physically enough to be able to make these plays. And that's where Caleb Williams gets interesting, because he is physically skilled enough to make these plays. And in terms of him being the next Patrick Mahomes, physically, he may have an even better base skill set. I mean, he has much more hype than Patrick Mahomes did coming out of college. Nobody really quite knew what Patrick Mahomes was going to be, except for a couple of people. I know Sean Payton had fallen in love with him through the draft process. He was going to take him. Matt Nagy had. There's a fascinating, on the New Heights podcast, there's the Kelsey Brothers podcast, Mahomes told a great story about how Matt Nagy basically gave him all the answers the night before his interview with the Chiefs, like gave him the plays Andy Reid was going to ask him to draw up, so that he could impress Reid, and so they could. So like some people saw his potential, but nobody expected Patrick Mahomes to do as good as he did in the way that we expect Caleb Williams. And I think that the reason for that is because Pat Mahomes is kind of like the Roger Bannister in this case, where Roger Bannister was the first person to run a sub 4-minute mile. And I said 5-minute mile. It's a sub 4-minute mile. He proved that human beings could do it after, I think, 9 years of that record not being advanced. And then within 2.5 years, 10 other runners had come up with sub 4-minute miles. So in that same way, Pat Mahomes had to get out there and prove that you can win with this kind of wild, new age, mobile, gunslinger sort of style. And that if you're one of these coaches, if you have a guy that can do that, instead of ironing that out, instead of that beating out of him. Patrick Mahomes and his success has empowered you to then encourage that in your guy. And so now that allows Caleb Williams to potentially rise to even greater heights. Because like Caleb Williams says, he's like, even in high school when I was watching him, and that's the thing, Caleb Williams was in high school when Pat Mahomes started doing this, right? So this is someone in Caleb Williams who has been brought up in this environment. So he's literally been raised with this style of play being right in front of his face. Patrick Mahomes, in a lot of ways, is kind of having to make this up as he goes along. But I think A-Barge nailed it in the chat. Like, he has the potential to be the next Patrick Mahomes, but A-Barge11 says he'll only be the next Pat Mahomes if he's drafted by the next Andy Reid. And that's what you just don't know. Because Mahomes did fall into a bit of a perfect storm situation where you have Andy Reid, you had Alex Smith to learn from, you had Travis Kelce, you had Tyreek Hill, right? Like, all the elements were there, and he was just the final piece of the puzzle. We've seen it. Like, look at Trevor Lawrence with Urban Meyer last year compared to Doug Peterson this year. Like, we've seen it Tua Tagovailoa last year with Brian Flores compared to him with McDaniel this year. Like, setting, coaching matter. So I don't know exactly if Caleb Williams will ever attain those heights, but I think he's capable. And I think it's fascinating to see him as one of the first products in this new age of quarterback led by like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen.
Aaron, turn your mic on, please.
Did we lose Aaron?
No.
Is he disconnected?
I'm here. They're doing the yard outside. So the guy was literally blowing leaves outside my room. And I was like, maybe you should probably put that on mute. So we're back though. We're back.
Now answer the question to T-Bob's point in 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1. Hey, yes, I think situation T-Bob does matter a ton when it comes to where you get drafted. I mean, like that's why it's not always great to be in the first few rounds. And I think you brought up a good point with Alex Smith. So I remember, I got drafted by Kansas City. I can hit on this whole mentorship for Alex Smith when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, didn't work out as good as for me as it did Patrick, but he tried his hardest. I'm just not as talented as Patrick Mahomes is. But Alex was with, I think, 4 different OCs and head coaches his first 4 years in the NFL. And he was drafted young. Alex, I think, was 20 years old when he got drafted out of Utah. Very, very young, high expectations, first pick in the draft. This is when the salary cap was in big favor of if you're picked in the top 5. These guys getting crazy good contracts. And then every year it's a new offensive system. It's a new head coach. It's a new culture change. Yeah. It's new players and just new faces. It's not easy to do. Like, there's a reason why you're getting drafted in the top 5. That team sucks. So he was drafted in a good spot. He learned from Alex. He got Andy Reid. He got Tyreek. He got, Kelce and a lot of other good guys around him. That's the biggest thing. And you look at Caleb Williams this season. It's he transferred, but he transferred with his head coach. He transferred into an offense that he knows, that he had a year of experience with, that he had success with at Oklahoma. You carry that over there to USC. You bring in, the defending best receiver in the country there from Pittsburgh. You bring in some top talent at the running back position as well. You have an incredible offensive line. Big shout out to him for bringing his offensive line there to the Heisman ceremony this past weekend. Thought that was really, really cool. So he was in a great situation to take the step from last year to this year. And I want to go back to just the backyard nature of playing the position of quarterback. Because last year I thought he did it a little bit to the extreme. At times last year, he was a little bit too reckless. Like, we all remember the play where he ripped the ball away from his teammates and ended up getting the first down, and they ended up winning that football game because of that. Like, that's amazing. Like, that is legitimately like what you do with your buddies when you're in 6th, 7th grade in your parents' backyard. But at times last year, he was trying to be too creative and trying to do too much. And there's always a fine balance. And I always talk with Stetson about this too, because Stetson had a little bit of a, F it mentality last year at times, where he went to the extremes of trying to make too many plays. There is a line of, I always bring it up, of being cocky and confident. Can you border that? Can you feel like you're the baddest dude on the field? You can make every throw on the field, but do it in a way where you don't put your team in danger. And I think Caleb took a massive step in that department this year, where he was protecting the football. He was picking when he wanted to take chances down the field, when to throw the football away, when to get down, when to slide. He evolved as a quarterback. And the scary thing is he's still young. It's only his second year. What he can do on this trajectory right now, when you talk about where his ceiling is, it's better than what Mahomes was coming out of Texas or Texas Tech. it's really, I think he's in a position right now that you never want to say someone's a for sure fire all-pro Hall of Famer, none of that. Obviously, like I said, it has to depend on his situation he gets drafted into, but his skill set right now today is ahead of where Patrick Mahomes was coming out of Texas Tech. And that is why every NFL scout and GM is saying, hey, if I don't need a quarterback this year, I ain't drafting one, because if I can somehow find a way to get him next year, our franchise is going to be in a hell of a position to compete for championships.
Yeah, and well, it's like we talked about, right? This again is the natural evolution. Like, he's in that better position because Pat Mahomes had to break down a lot of those Bears. But we'll see. I mean, T-Law, Trevor Lawrence again was like as can't miss of a prospect ever, and even he looked bad because he was in an awful situation. Now that he's in a better one, he's looking pretty good. He played great this last Sunday, so he's going to need to do more consistently, but we'll see. I'll be now. Some guys transcend, right? Like Joe Burrow arguably transcended and kind of dragged Cincinnati up along with him. We'll see if Caleb Williams can be that same character for wherever he ends up. I do like
fun question
about,
here.
Though,
yeah. So let's put all those guys in a draft right now, because you bring up Trevor Lawrence. He was a guy that, he looks the part. I mean, I met him when he was a senior in high school. He's 6'6", got the flow. I mean, I'm like I felt like a little kid standing next to Trevor Lawrence. Looks the part, athletic, big arm, big kid. I mean, literally, if you're on Madden and you want to create a player, it's probably going to look like Trevor Lawrence. Joe Burrow had the greatest single season, in my opinion, besides Cam Newton, for a college quarterback ever in the history. And obviously, you're seeing what he's doing there for the Bengals, and now we're seeing what Caleb Williams is doing this year. Of those three, who would you take to lead your team if they're coming out right now?
So I'm probably a bit biased here. If you're joining us on Snaps the first time, you can see the LSU jerseys behind me. That's kind of what I talk about on a daily basis. And so I watch that Burrow thing firsthand. But I also think I hate this because I think that we overvalue championships, especially in a team sport like football.
Yep.
But Burrow played in a Super Bowl. Burrow brought the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl, and in fact had to go through Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs to do so, and has now beaten Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs the last 3 times that they have played. So, I still love the potential of T-Law, and he was in an awful situation, and he is getting better. And I love the potential of Caleb Williams, but if you're asking me, I've seen it out of Burrow, so I have to go there. D-Weeds in the chat says, I have no clue how Burrow's doing what he's doing in Cincinnati. He's doing it because, well, first off, his intangibles are out of control. They're kind of like Jalen Hurts levels of intangibles, right? Just elite in terms of leadership, work ethic, et cetera, et cetera. And also then it's just timing and decision making. That's how he's created, and he can run around a bit, like Aaron talked about. He's mobile as well. But yeah, Burrow's not the physical freak that a Lawrence or a Caleb Williams is, but that's what I'm saying. Caleb is, but he scores so incredibly high on those other aspects, the competitiveness, the work ethic, blah, 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 yada, yada. So I would take Burrow personally.
See, I take Caleb. I think Caleb is what you want as a quarterback. Trevor at times a little bit too robotic for me. I mean, I love what he does. I think remember, there is a difference in the age too. Like Joe Burrow has played a lot more football. Joe Burrow is a lot more mature than those guys just because he's an older quarterback. What is he, 25, 26 years old? These two are probably going to go 3 and done. Yeah, like Stetson, just they've been around the block. They're playing with little kids. It's unfair, obviously. So I think that to me, I think that's the biggest advantage of Joe Burrow. He is, every time you're around him, just a very, very mature human being. And this is something I said about Caleb last week. That's the one big concern for me right now is where is he maturity-wise? And he's young, and he's going to continue to mature and grow and develop and all that. But I know you hate the fingernail thing, but I think that is a sign of a little bit immaturity. I think the way he interacts with his coaches on the field at times is a little bit immature. Oh, don't roll your eyes. That's a little bit of a red flag. He's not perfect. I'm throwing it out there. He's not a perfect quarterback that right now I feel 100%
he is
great
pretty
about
damn,
him.
Dude,
he's pretty close.
He's pretty damn good looking.
But if he gets better like that, it's the hair.
Even look at him next to the other Heisman. I was shocked when I saw all 4 of them lined up in New York, and I was like, Caleb Williams is orders of magnitude better looking than these cats. Like, he's absolutely winning the award. He's better looking. He's in LA. Caleb Williams is about as close to perfect as you can come. Again, in that your entire criticism of him is a little bit of BBL and some painted fingernails. I like the finger. Sorry, to be clear, chat. When Aaron says I dislike the fingernail thing, he means I dislike the criticism of the fingernails. Yes. I fully support the painting of the.
You are against the nail discourse, if you will.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes, thank you.
He's a stud, though. I would take him. Because I think Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback that I would want. Him or like, I still think Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen are the top two quarterbacks in the NFL right now, and he's the closest thing to one of those two between the three of him, Fair. Burrow or Lawrence. So yeah, I'd take Caleb. I think that is his ceiling, and that's a hell of a ceiling. Like, he is up there, man. Like, now it's just a question of what crappy team is going to be number one to draft him, and what coaching staff is going to get their claws into him. Because, like you brought up too, I think, like, Andy Reid is one of the best minds in all of football. I mean, what he does. I mean, he would literally wake up, and I don't think he would actually sleep. We'd get to the facility, and he said he'd be like sleeping with a piece of paper, like a napkin, by his bed. Would wake up and draw a play, then go right back to sleep. And they come up with like napkins and pieces of paper, like, hey, I thought of this last night while I was sleeping. Like, the man is dreaming football 24/7, like just nonstop. He is a master. And that's what Patrick Mahomes got drafted into. Like, you can't tell me that a quarterback is going to get drafted into that perfect situation ever again. Like, it's just not going to happen.
No, he's Mormon, right? He has no vices. When you have no vices and you're not distracting yourself with beer and whiskey and Pornhub, next thing you know, all you're doing is football, and you become incredible at it. Imagine that. All right, let's move on to a little Prime Hub, because Deion primetime back in the news, man, as Colorado already paying immediate dividends here, as Deion over the weekend gets a commitment from the number 8 flips a commitment from Notre Dame for the number 8 ranked running back in the country, an ESPN top 300 cat. This guy's Dylan Edwards. He's a 5'8" running back. He was committed to Kansas State, which, look, all I'm saying is, if I'm a 5'8" running back, probably going to Kansas State. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. He flips from Kansas State to Notre Dame, and now he flips immediately to Colorado. And the quote is the interesting part. It says, quote, I know a lot of guys are about to come here. I know a lot of guys that are about to flip their commitments. They're all big Power 5 guys, lots of offers, guys that are 4 and 5 stars. Nobody is safe in this situation recruiting-wise. Coach Deion's plan here is worth coming to look at, and recruits are going to want to do that. Do you agree? Do you think Deion at Colorado represents a danger to like a couple of Georgia 4 or 5 stars, or LSU 4 or 5, or Alabama? Like, can he actually represent a potential threat at Colorado in year number 1?
He was a threat at an HBCU last year. He took the number 1 recruit in the nation away from all those schools to go to that school. So yes, is he a threat? Hell yeah, he is. Like, duh. He brought, Travis from the claws of Florida State and Georgia and Alabama, and said, no, come to Jackson State with me. And then a bunch of, he had a bunch of other 4-star guys that he got that were top 300 guys. So yes, he is 100% danger now that he has facilities, that he's in a Power 5 conference, that he can compete for conference championships and compete to make the playoffs. I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but eventually. So yes, he 100% has put himself in a position where he's going to be able to build this roster. He's already, you remember all those that the Scott and all these, 4-star guys he got last year, those guys get to hit the portal. And as soon as they win their championship this Saturday afternoon they're going to follow him and go to Colorado. So then all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 4-stars, which is 4 or 5 more 4-stars that are already, more than you had on the roster. So the rosters are already better. So yes, he is a major, major threat to all the big boys. And I think something too that's happening at the moment, because of USC and their success, because of UCLA and their success, and Oregon and Washington, and then the thought of the expanded playoffs, the relevance of West Coast football, I think, is getting better. It's not the SEC. Mm-hmm. It's not the excitement here that we live every day in Georgia and Louisiana and the Bama and the Carolinas. Like that's an extreme. But people on the West Coast, because of Caleb Williams and because of those other teams, and like I said, the expanded playoffs, are now taking more recognition about college football. And so are recruits and recruiting parents. So now all of a sudden, if you're a kid and you want to stay in the West Coast, you don't want to have to go across country to make mom and dad travel. And now Deion Primetime Sanders is there in Colorado, you may go take a trip there. So I think for him, all he needs to do is get those kids on campus. He's a hell of a recruiter.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a motivator. He's building a tremendous group of coaches and a staff and a support staff around him. All he's telling his staff and fans, just get him to Boulder and I'll do the rest of it. And I do trust Deion. If you get them to Boulder, he is going to win a lot of those decisions from a lot of these top recruits. So, he's a major threat, especially to those West Coast teams as they're trying to build out there.
And Boulder seems cool as hell in its own right? And then Deion is the ultimate cool. And like B-Bean's talking about in the chat, players' parents will want to meet Deion. It's almost like if you have an offer from Deion, even if in your heart you think there's no way you're going to go there, you take the visit just to meet Coach Prime. Like you take the visit just to go see what it's all about. And then within that, maybe that natural charisma, the natural flash, that smile overcomes you. And all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm going to change all my plans. I think I can see myself committing here. I thought that Zion Olajede, and I apologize, I'm pronouncing his last name wrong. I'm sure it could be Olajede. It's Olojed. He's one of the head content guys for Complex. He had a great piece on complex.com where there's been a lot of discourse over Deion leaving Jackson State for Colorado after 3 years, after all of his promises of what he wanted to do with HBCUs and everything else. And some people saying he bailed on that and he bailed on it for Colorado and it kind of cheapens the original message. Well, I think it's an interesting conversation where I definitely see validity to both sides of the argument. But Zion went and talked to the actual Jackson State players, right? Imagine that. Interviewed them. Okay, how do you feel about your coach now leaving for Colorado? And what's wild is nearly to a man, they were very appreciative and thankful of what Prime did for Jackson State and HBCUs. And many of them basically saying also that he kept it very real, that from day one, they knew this wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when, and that in that time he was there, that he did everything he promised to do. He grew them. He put them on the map. He came out of his own pocket to pay for facilities and upgrade everything, all the equipment, everything that they had, right? So, like, while we're all talking about the guys that really matter are the ones that actually played for him, and they all are completely happy with him and what he did. And that's a huge positive sign, in my opinion, for what he's going to do next. And in that article, he interviews the players as well about why they chose Jackson State. And there's one cat, Isaiah Bolden. He was leaving Florida State after a coaching change. He was going to go to Texas A&M. He talked to Coach Prime for an hour on the phone, and he immediately flipped to JSU. And it was the last line from Zion's article that stood out to me. He said, quote, "I ain't going to lie to you. When the GOAT call your phone, why not go with him?" And I think that's very representative of what Dylan Edwards is saying. That's what Aaron is saying. And that's what I am saying, is that he, like he told you and like the Jackson State president told you, he opens doors that are closed otherwise. And once the door of opportunity is open, there have been few human beings on this planet in the game of football that are better at following through on those opportunities. So, yeah, like Aaron said, if he's getting the number one recruit in the nation at Jackson State, he's absolutely going to be a threat at Colorado.
Well, and he's a proven winner as a coach too. I know it's a different league. It's not a Power 5 school, but winning's winning. At the end of the day, like, can you recruit the better players in your conference or your division or whatever it may be? He's proven he can do that. Can you then go develop that talent and win football games? He's proven that. I just think there's a level of credibility. Like if you're in Alabama and Nick Saban tells you to do something, you're sure as hell going to do that. And you're going to try to do it at a very high level because he's proven that, hey, if I follow directions and I do what Coach Saban says, there's a good chance that I'm going to win individual awards, we'll win a championship, and I'll have an opportunity to play at the next level. Why Coach Sanders maybe, Deion hasn't proven that necessarily, hey, I can coach first-round talent, I can get you to the NFL. He's played at the highest of levels. He's one of the all-time greats in the NFL.
Yeah.
So if he's been around the best of the best, he knows what it takes to play. Because don't get me wrong, like all these kids love college football. I love college football. You love college football. People listening to the show love college football. The kids enjoy it, and especially now that they get paid. But the goal is, can I get to the NFL? Can I go make a boatload of money, retire at 40, and just play golf? Like, that's everyone's dream. Prime has been there, done that, knows what he's talking about, knows what it takes to get there. The level of credibility that he brings when he talks to these recruits, he can sit down with your mom and dad and say, hey, I played in the NFL. I played with this Pro Bowler, this Pro Bowler, this player. I won this championship. I know what it takes to get your son here. I'm going to develop him. I'm going to turn him to the best D-line, cornerback, quarterback, receiver, running back, whatever it takes to win championships and make his dreams come true. How are you going to disagree with that man? He's been there, done that. He knows what it takes. I think he's going to absolutely kick ass there at Colorado. And I'll say, like I said last week, shame on Auburn for not giving him a chance. I still think they're going to be, regretting this decision just a tad bit at the end of the day.
Well, guess what? That's just a feeling. That's just a feeling, Aaron Murray. And when your commitment to the team is greater than your feelings, that's when the winning starts. Okay, wake up. Have you ever read The Wheel of Time, Aaron? Have you ever heard of Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time, a fantasy series? Okay, in that story, they talk about some humans having a strong Taverin, right? And what this is that basically reality kind of weaves around them, almost bends to their will. It's almost like they have a magnetic pull on everything around them. I think you see this in athletes sometimes, like a Tom Brady. Joe Burrow has strong Taverin. You see coaches with this. Deion has this. Everything he has touched in life has turned into a success. His Taverin is incredibly strong, and he'll prove it once again. What is this from the chat? Joe A says, bet the guy on the left has lice. Looks like Tom Hanks in Castaway. Don't you talk about Aaron Murray that way, okay? Aaron just had a kid. You need to relax, okay? My man's barely sleeping at night, and I'm not going to stand here and let you call Aaron.
Is that about you?
Did
he say left or right?
Yeah. He said left, but I thought we were doing like from our perspective. You're on my left because it's Hey, Joe. Well, that's just.
I do. My wife did look at me last night and say, "You got a lot more salt, baby." I was like, "I know. There's a lot more salt coming in." I know they're making fun. Yeah, 2 kids, bro. Holy smokes. Yeah, a little salt and pepper. It looks good for TV, though. It does look good. It makes me look a little bit more, a little bit more mature, a little older. So I'm all for it.
I love salt and pepper. Ideally, I'll go gray at the temples. Right? I would love to just go gray at the temples and look like a wise old journalist or something, or well, in Texas, how Hal Jordan looked when he lost his mind and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps. But that's a conversation for another day. I agree with D-Weez in the chat. QBs don't get lice. That's true. I've never known a quarterback with lice. They're too self-involved for that, right? They I mean, look at Aaron. Look how beautiful he is. That does not happen by accident. It's a lot of natural talent, but there's also work that goes into that.
Yes, a lot of work. I try and follow Sharon's late night skin routine. Keep it nice and moist and soft like a baby's butt, as T-Bob and I will know right now. So
yes,
a lot
baby
of work,
skin,
boys and girls.
So
a lot of work.
Oh my God, it's so soft, so fresh. Timothy, oh wait, sorry, the poll closed up the chat that I wanted to get to. Timothy Perry says, so Deion has some dirt on his name in Dallas. Look, nobody's saying his Deion is perfect, right? And it's very clear that he did go through some public demons that he had to battle. But again, it's a testament to his pull on reality that nobody cares and nobody ever mentions it. And it
personal
just is
demons certainly weren't an issue for Auburn in their coaching search.
Hey, that's a man of God. I need you to relax, Prum, okay? I do like that. If you just evangelize, you can do whatever the hell you want. But whatever, that doesn't matter. I don't want to get into that conversation. Now, let's get into so look, I love Bill Connolly. He does the S&P Plus. We talk about Bill Connolly constantly on the show, right? I think his analytics, I think the way that he views college football is great. And he always does fun list sorts of deals. Well, he came up with he does it every year. He is now updated. It's the top 5 teams of the playoff era. So he has ranked all 36 teams that have made the college football playoff. It starts at number 36 with that Michigan State team that snuck in last year. And then we get to the top 5, and it's I'll just list top 5 and then we'll get into it. Number 5 on this list, 2021 Georgia. That's right, the 21 Bulldogs who finally captured that championship once again are number 5 on list. Number 4, as it stands currently, is 2022 Georgia. Number 3 is 2018 Clemson. Number 2, 2019 LSU. And number 1, 2020 Alabama. I've got a lot of problems with this. I love Conley.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I love this list. First off, on 2021 Georgia, sure, right? They could be fighting for that number 1 spot maybe, but they had the SEC championship loss. And they are the highest ranked 1-loss team on this list. So like immediately they are where they are because they lost a game.
Let's have that debate first, T-Bob.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's have that before we get to the I think this is an interesting topic right here because a lot of people are obviously comparing last year's team just living in the state, last year's national championship team to this year's team that right now looks like they're going to win the national championship. Which team is better? And obviously he has it as this year's team is ranked 1 spot ahead of last year's national championship team. I disagree. I think if you put both those teams on a field today, I would take the 2021 football team. I think the defense is absolutely studded. As we know, I mean, I don't have to bring up the stats. How many guys got drafted off that defense? I think the defense is better. I think the offense actually is better. I think, look at the points they're scoring this year. I think they're better at running back. I think with what James Cook brought last year from the running back position, the way AD Mitchell, emerged in the playoffs, the way McConkey played. Obviously, Bowers was terrific last year as well. So I don't think a ton of difference from the skill. I think the biggest difference is Stetson is playing with more confidence, and that helps. But I still think last year's team is just as talented on offense, and I think they're more talented on defense. I would take last year's team ahead of this year's team.
So it's interesting, right? Because I agree with everything you're saying, and I think these Georgia teams far better than I do, and so I think you're correct. But I also understand, per this list, you have to be undefeated if you want to be in this top 4, right? And so, I agree from a theoretical standpoint of what you're saying, but that's a level of nuance, and I don't know if you're going to get people.
Schedule's a little bit easier. A little easier
this
year schedule-wise. Yes, this year's Georgia schedule. I mean, let's go. They both went undefeated. And then which team would you rather face in the SEC championship game? Last year's Alabama team or this year's LSU team? It's a harder matchup. Yeah. It's a better football team.
Absolutely. So 100%.
I guarantee you, if last year's Georgia team was facing LSU, what was in this SEC, they would have done the same thing, if not worse. So,
for sure.
They would have given a big play on the field.
LSU got smacked up by Texas A&M. Okay. It's a testament to glue and popsicle sticks and traits over talent, like Brian Kelly said, that LSU was in that game in the first place. So 2021 Georgia at number 5, 2022 Georgia at number 4. I think 2022 Georgia actually, even if you would rank it behind 21, Aaron, they have a golden opportunity to move up on this list. Because when you look ahead of them, 2018 Clemson was awesome. In fact, 2018 Clemson was better than I really remember. They were 15-0.
Yep.
They ran through the playoffs, beating Notre Dame 30-3 and Bama 44-16, 74-19. That's a 55-point differential there in the playoffs. However, if you think back, this was also the team that barely escaped Texas A&M with the 2-point version and had Chase Bryce lead them on a comeback to beat Syracuse, right? So they had 2 close calls compared to this year's Georgia's 1. And when you look at this year's UGA team, Ohio State is a massive matchup. If Georgia goes and dominates that team, that's going to vault them up. And then if they go and dominate a national championship against, maybe Michigan, whatever, who's been perfect otherwise, yes, there's a good chance that UGA 2022 could end up number 3 on this list. But as it stands now, I don't really have too much of a problem there because that 2018 Clemson team was way better even than I remember once I started to go down this kind of memory road.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that too. I agree. If Georgia does end up beating, most likely Ohio State, then Michigan, I would put them at 3. I'd still, once again, if we want to talk about just, better season, I guess you could say this year's team for Georgia had the better season because they went undefeated compared to not winning the SEC championship last year. So if you're going purely on that, then yes. But if I'm going on once again, like, hey, put those two teams on NCAA football 2022, 2023, whenever it comes out, I do think last year's team would win that football game and win that matchup on the field. But just pure season-wise, yes, you move that team ahead of Clemson. They're into number 3 spot. Where I have issue, and I think you have issue with too, is the 1 and 2 spot. I thought that 2019 LSU team and that offense with Joe Burrow and those receivers and Clyde Edwards at running back and the production on that side, the talent they had on defense, yes, it didn't show at times for the first 3/4 of the season, but they showed up there later on. That team to me would beat anyone on this list head to head. And that's how I compare my list. You put both teams on a field, who would win? I put my money on 2019 LSU to take care of business versus 2020 Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they closed out that season, dominating Georgia, dominating Oklahoma 63-28, beat Clemson 42-25. So again, they gave up a little more scoring than did that 18 Clemson team, but that's a 52-point differential out of LSU. So really the gap is the same. And a lot of that is against the same members of that 2018 Clemson team that was so incredible. Let's talk about, let's just actually read verbatim why Connolly put 2020 Bama number 1 overall, because I think it exposes the problems. The Crimson Tide had the number 1, 3, and 5 finishers in the Heisman voting. They played one game decided by fewer than 14 points. They bested an SEC-only schedule by an average of 30.2 points per game. Their defense struggled early, but allowed only 15 per game after mid-October. This was Nick Saban's best team ever, and quite possibly the best team of the 21st century. Best team from the best coach with the best dynasty. Sounds like the best team of the CFP era. 2 problems with this. First off, 1, it completely ignores the elephant in the room, COVID, right? It was a completely different year than any we have ever seen, and there was no doubt that Nick Saban handled it better than nearly anybody else. And while that is a huge credit to Saban and company, it also kind of works against them in my mind in this conversation, because when you look at it, having the 1st, 3rd, and 5th Heisman finalist on one team, that is an absurd outlier, right? Like if it had happened in a normal year, I would have said this was like the best thing ever. The problem is it happened, that outlier happened in the biggest outlier year of all time. And so that concentration and that correlation tells me that this was more about how Nick Saban handled COVID relative to his opponents. Also, look at Bama's struggles on the road the last couple of years, and then understand that road teams didn't really exist that year. My second big problem with Connolly's final sentence here, the quote, best team for the best coach of the best dynasty of the 21st century sounds like the best team of the CFP era. That is fundamentally flawed logic. You can have the greatest dynasty ever, and you can be the best coach ever, and it can be the best team of your tenure ever, but that does not make it the best team ever. And 2019 LSU, it's not a part of a dynasty. It's the ultimate one-off. It is a perfect storm of good that immediately crumbled into dust. It was the ultimate glass cannon, a nuclear bomb that just left devastation in its wake, right? But it should not be penalized for not being a part of something greater. We are talking about single-year team and single-year samples. And so if you want to call 2020 Nick Saban's best team, that is fine by me. But it does not automatically equate to being the best team ever. And I think when you look at the success the guys from that LSU team have gone on to have, yes, I feel comfortable in saying that LSU 19 would have beat Bama 20, and it'd be a battle against 21 UGA. I would like to see that as well.
Yep. So that's the next interesting one. You put the best offense of maybe ever in college football against one of the best defenses ever. Let's just say in the past 10 years, probably LSU's offense, best offense we've seen in the past decade, 10, 15 years. And same thing with Georgia's defense. I will be sorry, Georgia fans, LSU would win that football game. We've seen even that year. I mean, what did Georgia struggle with in the SEC championship game? They struggled with teams that could push the ball vertically down the field, and Alabama won that game. And why Georgia's not ranked a little bit ahead of. You tell me that Burrow, the way that he was playing that season, how magical it was with Chase and company and Clyde Edwards, would not be able to put up a ton of points versus Georgia. Yeah, LSU would to me, once again, if you put that team on the field against any team on that list, would take care of business in a big, big way. It was a special year. I give you credit, T-Bob.
Yeah.
That was a special,
Thank you.
magical
I deserve
year.
credit. I deserve credit.
You do.
Thank you.
You
It was me.
100% deserve
I
credit.
put it
'Cause
together.
you know why? Because you didn't give one pregame speech, I'm sure. That's why.
Okay, relax. Aaron's referencing the fact that I got to do the pregame hype video for Tennessee this year and it went horribly. No, but I did make a 10 to 15 minute, 19 episode radio play called "Song of Purple and Gold," which covered the adventures of the Swamp King as he seated to unseat the Crimson Emperor and regain the glories of the cast iron throne. And guess what? He did it. Okay, Aaron, he did it. Punk, just because you're living now, just because you are now the Crimson Emperor with Kirby Smart and the red and black on top. Just wait. The end will hurt all the worst.
I told you last
got a
week,
question for you, Aaron.
we are in the middle of the dynasty. We're in the middle of the dynasty, T. We're in it. You just don't know
maybe.
it. You just don't know
You
it.
better win.
Until we look back.
You better win.
We're in the middle of it.
That's fair.
You better win.
If you win the national championship, I told you, I will grant you the rank of dynasty. Right now, you are a Jedi Master, but I do not put you on the council. I'm sorry. Not until you win this second natty. Here's an interesting tidbit in this piece. The 10 playoff-free programs, those are the ones who have not made the playoffs, that have had the best S&P Plus ranking of the CFP era. And with 1 year left in the 14 playoff, Aaron, which one of these teams has the best chance to make it next year? You got Iowa at 10, Ole Miss at 9, Mississippi State at 8, Oklahoma State at 7, Utah 6, Wisconsin 5, Penn State 4, A&M 3, Florida 2, and Auburn 1. So next year, which of those teams do you think has the best chance to make the CFP?
Iowa, no. Ole Miss, no. Mississippi State, no. Oklahoma State, no.
Oklahoma State's kind of interesting. I mean, me and Brum were talking about it before the show.
Yeah,
the Big 12's kind of weak, right?
Though. Yeah, the Big 12 is weak. I guess you lean. Michigan's returning, their quarterback in a lot. I would kind of lean towards Michigan, take care of business. A&M, hell no. Florida, no. Auburn, no. So yeah, if I had to pick one, I guess Oklahoma State, maybe Utah. Look,
Utah's the answer. Utah's got to be the answer.
Yeah,
they've been in 4 of the 5 last Pac-12 championships. They've knocked on the door. They beat the hell out of USC twice. And so, look, Caleb Williams can be intimidating and USC can be good. But until Utah stops whooping that ass consistently, I'm not giving USC the benefit of the doubt over them. Like, what happened in that Pac-12 championship was some little brother shit. That was some Sun shit. That's what the Pelicans did to the Suns this weekend.
What's his name? I don't know if the quarterback's back though again next year. Cam Rising has been magical ever since he took over after that San Diego State game last year. So I don't know if he's back or not. If he's back, yes, little brother, big brother. But yeah, the list sucks. I don't think any of them make it. But if I had to pick one, it'd be Utah.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the point of the list is they've never made it, right? So it's kind of against them. Yes. Hey, Brum. You also produce an NBA podcast. Are y'all going to make sure to only talk about the Pelicans today?
We do not have an episode today, but if we did, we would only be talking Pelicans.
Good, excellent. Because at a time when everything else sucks, or the Saints suck, Pelicans are awesome. George is awesome, and we're going to talk about it as the playoffs are hurtling right along. And look, if you love some snaps, well, we love you. And if you want to help us out, you can sub to the pod and you can share with your friends. You can like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch our YouTube videos. Maybe share those with your friends as well. Kind of try to, grassroots recruit some people in here. You can go download the FanDuel Sportsbook app and use the promo code SNAPS, where you'll get all sort of incredible boosts and deals and, the $1,000 no sweat first bets, like all kinds of great deals. And you can also buy some merch. If you want to buy some Snaps merch, that baby blue sweater is literally the most comfortable sweater I own, full stop. And if you use the promo code SNAPS20, you get 20% off. Aaron, you have a great day, my friend. You have a great show. Thank you. Huge, massive thank you to everybody in the chat. You know that we love you so much, and thank you for hanging out with us every day. Huge thank you to Pat Gunner, Ryan Brumley, Paul Farrington, Danny Cardenas, everybody else who helps make this show happen. Uncle Colin, FanDuel, we love you. We'll see you tomorrow for some new snaps.
Boom. All right, boys.
Look at that. 5 minutes to spare.